So before we get into Hereafter, you have produced a ton, and it's already gone. You've produced a ton of things. What do you think would surprise people to learn about being a producer in Hollywood?
Surprise? I don't know. It's never easy. I don't know. I feel like producing in Hollywood. I started my career in New York and as an independent producer, and kind of sort of scrappy from the get-go. It was just about figuring out a way to tell stories. I actually started. I think I wanted to be an actor initially when I got out of school, and started on that trajectory and started doing some commercials and working in that genre. And I quickly saw that there was more, I felt like, interesting stuff happening on the other side of the camera. For me, I just was actually probably not that good of an actor, is the reality. And it was just more intriguing to be a producer. I saw just putting the pieces together and being able to figure out how to tell a story, how to make it engaging, how to put all these different elements together, and from every step of it. So in New York, working in the independent film world, you sort of had to do everything from finding good material, finding a script to work with and the filmmaker, but also, making a deal for catering and finding getting the equipment and then putting the money together. And so just putting all these pieces together is, it's not really surprising, but it's what it is to be a producer. You have to, nowadays, I feel like know everything and a little bit of everything, and the way the whole industry works and the way the industry is going I think it's no longer good just to be able to know how to find the material, but you have to find the material and figure out how to maneuver and put it together and make it into something that is, entertaining.
So you, as I said, you've produced a lot of things.
Yeah.
Which film or films went through the biggest changes in the editing room in ways you didn't expect?
Oh, good question. I don't know. They all, for the most part, I think, the core of each film was always there from the beginning to the end. And I think what happens in the editing process, having gone through it as a producer for many years, it's a lot of fun because it's a whole other way of, it's the next phase of directing your film is in the post-production, in the edit. I think the core of what has always been there is still there. It's just maybe not exactly as it was scripted at times. There's different elements and beats that help, and there's sometimes things that you find aren't needed. So things get pulled out, and then maybe there's something more that you do need. There's just different elements of everything. I think every film starts one way, and it's by the time you get to the edit, there are a bunch of different changes and elements to it. Is
there one film though that really went through some serious changes compared to what you thought?
I don't remember anything changing dramatically from what we thought we were doing or what we started with. I've got to think. Way too many.
I like putting people on the spot with curveballs.
I'm trying to give you something, but I can't think off the top of my head of something that changed
I got plenty of questions. You don't have to worry.
Okay, good.
So you produced Tom Ford's A Single Man and Nocturnal Animals.
Yes.
Tom Ford needs to make more movies. What do we need to do that?
I think Tom is eager to make more movies. I mean, you're gonna have to ask him, but I think that's probably not to reveal his dirty little secret, but I think he is more. I think he loves filmmaking almost more than fashion at times. He's he's a filmmaker, and he loves creating his world in those movies, and I'm sure he will again very soon.
I like the way you're talking, and I really hope that he is directing something soon, besides doing real estate. So with Hereafter, this is your directorial debut, and I'm curious, how much did you debate what you wanted your first film to be? Like, were you thinking, do I want to do this kind of genre? Do I want to do this? Like, what was in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I think what really I was looking for is something, having produced for so many years, and I produced also, started my career in my 20s, and I was producing for actor directors with Billy Bob Thornton, acting, directing. I produced for Al Pacino. He acted and starred in a film, Chinese Coffee, and I've had the really good fortune, I think, of working really close and intimately with some amazing actor directors, John Turturro, acting and directing. And then through that process, I think there was just a more intimate relationship with those filmmakers, just by the nature of who they were and how they work, and the auteur filmmakers then afterwards that I got to work with from an early age. And so it's always seemed normal to me from my 20s on, that storytelling was something that I wanted to do, and I really enjoyed doing it as a producer, but I wanted to find something, I was ready to find something that was my own story to tell. And what I wanted to do was really explore kind of interpersonal relationships, and something in this story that I felt like that was meaningful is the idea of forgiveness, the idea of guilt, and the idea of what repressing that for so long does, and the demons that can come out of it. I wanted to, try to make something also that this isn't a horror film. It's a horror topic, but it's not necessarily your genre of a horror film. There's genre elements that I wanted, and I wanted to try to keep it so that it would be accessible to an audience and to have people come and see it, but really explore a little bit more of the dynamic of what it is to keep something so bottled up and repressed, and as Claire did, and explodes.
How much did you debate the title, and was it ever something else?
Oh, yeah. The script, I was very fortunate. One of my producers introduced me to Sarah Conrad, who was the screenwriter, and who was amazing. There was, oh my gosh, I think we did have another title initially at one point, but I think, and there wasn't too much debate. We discussed it, and Sarah and I, both agreed that this other title, Hereafter, would work. I guess I debated it at times, coming back and forth throughout the process, but ultimately, this is what it is. It's here and the Hereafter.
So this doesn't work without the lead, without Connie.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about getting her and those initial conversations.
Yeah, I mean, Connie is absolutely spectacular. She's a amazing person and actress and performance, of course. We initially met. I sent her the script, and she responded thankfully to it. We met early on, and just, I think, kind of connected on the same level. She's a mother. She has a young son, and she was related to this as well. And it was just, somebody who's had her years of experience and her talent. She kind of brings something to the table that is just really helpful, and then you can kind of work together to develop, the story and the seeing what she brings with her character, and conversations about what it was like to, be in this isolated experience. I think that was one of the things I loved about her being an American woman, her character in Italy. She's a little bit more isolated, and I know that she's talked about this as well, as herself being an American actress in Italy. I think Connie and I were kind of like the only two Americans there. We had, everyone else was Italian, or Freya, the young girl, her daughter, was from the UK. And the rest of the entire crew was all Italian. So there was an isolation aspect to it for her, and for myself as well, actually, as the filmmaker, with all this Italian around you.
I'm sure the food was very good on set, but
It was very good.
Yeah.
The Italians are amazing because they love to take a break, and they want to. We'd be scouting, and every 3 hours or so they would need to. Say, oh, Robert, I found this is the most amazing biscotti in all of Italy. We have to try. And so you would, okay, and everybody had everyone had their perfect biscotti or Italian pastry shop there, and so we would stop, and there was something quite refreshing about it. As an American filmmaker, it's stressful because you're just like, you want to keep going. Let's go. We got to go. But there's something that we stop, and you don't drink. They think it's ridiculous drinking coffee in paper cups. You stop and you sit at a cafe and you have a little espresso. You sit, you talk. It takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you sit, you talk. Can't talk about work. It's got to be life, family, social. And then it's like, okay, let's go back on. And I'm like, oh my God, we've got to go. And they only want to shoot and work 9-hour days also. So on the, when Americans are used to these 15-hour days, I appreciate the Italian way, but I need like 50 days to shoot then.
One of the things that I really enjoyed is that Connie plays this like very realistic, very grounded. Talk a little bit about how you guys figured out like her tone in certain scenes when like, I don't want to do spoilers, but when she could be reacting much bigger and physical, and like, and how did you guys discuss the way to play it?
Well, I think that's what it is. I think there's more, for me, there's more power in that and I know that Connie for sure believed in that as well. Like she is a strong, independent woman. And I think that is what Claire is. And that is who Claire, to me, and our discussions was, in her past, as well. And so, this accident has completely reshaped her. This is traumatized her. She needs to continue on and live. And so I think that's part of the thing, is that her coming to terms with this was something that I think was meaningful to the storyline, keeping it insulated. That's what it was for me, is that it was an interior thing that was going on that she had suppressed for so long, this secret, and tried to put it out of her head. And that's where the Catholicism came in as well. I think there's a blurred line of like, was she praying for God? Was she praying for help? Or was this something that she was praying for, her own, an excuse or something to look at? And I think that's part of what the crucifix we see toward the end, what it represents to her in something else. And she's kind of giving up on the aspect of religion in some ways, as much as she's using that as a crutch.
I'm so curious about this, obviously, like all movies, but it's where and when you reveal information.
Yeah.
So how you're in the editing room, did you talk about where and when you decided to reveal stuff, and was it ever different than what we see in the movie? Yeah,
that's true. There are different times, and I feel like with the flashbacks, it was always structured in a way to have these flashbacks and be able to go through it. And so that was a place where I guess it could maneuver and manipulate a little bit. The conversation that she was having in present day and in therapy with Ben, the near death therapist, in the restaurant, and then in the flashbacks in her apartment. Those were places where it did play a little bit, and I think what had happened initially in an early cut kind of revealed too much, I felt, early on. And then just through it really is just a process of kind of, you have to screen it and hopefully screen it for some close people that you trust, and keep going on. And it's a back and forth, and you start to feel it. You start to feel the vibe and the idea of it. And I felt it was more important to kind of piece some of the flashbacks out. So yeah, there was more revealed early on. It might have even been scripted that way, and it works amazing on paper that way. And it is what attracted, I think, attracted Connie, attracted people to it. But then once you maybe put it in on screen, at times there is a little bit of manipulation to do and work with that. And so wound up holding back a little bit more of the flashbacks into different pieces and ends. And there's a few different reveals in this. I feel like the audience might catch on or think they catch on early, and then there's still another element that they haven't gotten at all, is what I hope we've achieved.
Who do you trust who do you trust for honest feedback, and what feedback did you get after that first friends and family screening? Like, in terms of, besides the where and when to reveal information, did you realize, oh, I need to tweak this or I need to tweak that? Because everyone I've spoken to, the first cut is always, there's still way more work to do.
Yeah. Oh my God, for sure. I mean, and I've seen a couple times I've worked with filmmakers as a producer who have let me in and see the assembly and see the first cut, but most times they don't like you to see the first assembly or the first cut, and I completely know why. I almost threw up watching the initial. It was we kind of I got to say, my editor John Lyons, who I love and adore, I made a short film and he cut that, so I already had a shorthand with him, which was great. He kind of showed me an assembly, but then he was just kind of like, let's screw the assembly. Let's not. We didn't go through a full official assembly. We just started working with it, because even watching the beginning was just you're tormented and tortured. What I would say for me was really helpful is I have some, as a producer, as an independent producer in New York City, I had a lot of another group of independent producers who we get together. We realized, in Los Angeles, the agents all have their weekly meetings. They get together. The executives have their weekly meetings. They get together. And we were just like a couple of friends were just like, us independent producers are struggling. We're just all on our own by ourselves. And so we did. We got a group of us and would get together for breakfast once a week. And so there were a couple of them that really gave me amazing, great feedback and information on early cuts. And there's just a couple of friends. There's another, a screenwriter is a close friend. And there was a couple of key people that gave me some really helpful thoughts and feedback. And one of the things I remember working with filmmakers in the past is even on I don't know if it's revealing something or not, but on 21 Grams, we had screened it for a bunch of other directors at the time. And one of the directors, Michael Mann, gave really amazing feedback to that, which was, we were done. And I think, I don't remember what it was. And he's like, this is genius. This is amazing. This is brilliant. And he loved it. But he said, now just go through and cut everything out. Cut it like an hour out of the film. He's like, but know that you have, this movie is perfection, and you can release this. And it is ended up what we did release on that film ultimately was kind of what Michael had seen initially. But it does give you a way of you all of a sudden strip stuff out that that's not how you're going to release the film, but you just get to see pacing and ideas and how that works. And so there was a longer version of this film, and then stripping things out, we came to a different middle ground that I felt like, propels the story forward in a more engaging way. So it's kind of experimenting, I think, and playing with stuff, which is what's just amazing and intimate about the editing room. It's a very intimate process in there at times to be able to do all that.
Yeah, the reason I keep on talking editing with everyone is just because one scene omitted can make or break a movie, or one extra, you know what I mean? Editing is everything. So you see the shooting schedule in front of you. What day did you...
Heart attack.
What day did you have circled in terms of, I can't wait to film this? And what day was circled in terms of, how the F are we going to film this?
Every day. I mean, honestly, this was, I probably... I don't know. I think it's what I did and how my career moved forward as a producer. I always took, I guess, big swings and big risks, and as a producer and what I was going to do and how I wanted to work. And I obviously did that, I feel like, with this. This was an enormous script. And I think we had just about 25 days to shoot all of this. And I had $5 million to make this. And so this was just one of those films that was every day was oh my God. And it was, working in Italy is amazing and exhausting. And it's just a bunch of different things all in one. and they work in a different way, and they don't want to ever tell. I've learned this now, but they don't ever want to tell the director no. So they yes me to death, and anything I want, yes, and they just don't want to say no. But the problem is, then you show up sometimes, and that yes they gave you, they really can't do it, and so it's a no. And I was kind of like, if you just told me, no, you can't do it, I wouldn't have been mad. I would have regrouped and figured it out. So I had to refigure out a lot of things on the fly. They weren't there. It was all good intention. And I think it's just the Italian culture, how it works. But we worked a lot of things on the fly. Of course, the underwater stuff was monumental, and the Italians in their Italian way didn't have a water tank until the week before. There was no water tanks available, so they literally found a public swimming pool. And they emptied it out. You wouldn't believe the circus we made. They put tarps all over the pool. There's tarps all over the top. And they made a tank out of a public swimming pool in Italy. And then we made this hydraulic with the car on it. And all of these aspects were just absolutely like mind-numbing, because I'm petrified that it's not going to actually be ready, because a week before you would think these things would be there and be ready. And the whole netherworld sequence, they were just started building that when that came up, and that was built like days before. Again, another amazing production designer who he and his art director Luca, they just I don't know how they did it, but they just made things appear, and it was
espresso and wine.
They have a lot of espresso and a lot of wine, and it is amazing. They have freedom to do stuff just the way their culture works at times to do all these things. But no, there was a lot of nerve-wracking things. One of the things that I would say I was petrified for a long time to shoot was actually, and this may be weird, was because it could be weird how it comes out, was the scene where Claire and Freya, she's asking Robin, about what it was like in the afterworld. She's in the kitchen, and that scene always, I had nerves about it, because I'd worked on a bunch of different things with Freya. Freya and I had talked, we had worked together. And I was afraid of how the fuck you would play, and we had a couple different versions of it, and just it was really great and amazing once we got on set, and then we were working, and Connie and Freya and talking. I don't think we had a chance really to rehearse that one particularly together. So when Connie came into that and we just started playing it, it just made sense, and it all played beautifully, and Freya did an amazing job in that, as did Connie. They both were very, real and natural and subtle, and I felt like really believable. So, but every day was kind of that chaos. And the other thing is also in Italy, we did this the Italian version way because we just didn't have the money. There's an American way to shoot in Italy as well, and that is they just pay higher rates, and you can work a 10 to 12 hour day. And then they'll do that. But if you're not, and you're doing the Italian way and the Italian rates, they want to work 9 hours and go home. And part of that idea is that they want to be able to have at least one meal with your family. Either the lunch or dinner has to be able to have with your family, and so work 9 hours. And then when we wanted to do a 10-hour day, we would sometimes, but we kind of had to plead and beg, and they get a nice overtime for that extra hour. But they also have to agree to it. They don't always want to even do the overtime. Sometimes they'd rather I just want to go home and have my meal. So, doing the 25 days, doing 9-hour shoots, and it was just a lot. And so then everybody's speaking Italian, and I'm not really good with the Italian. I had little girls, I had 5-year-olds, who also only spoke Italian, because the best performance I got was out of the little girls that only spoke Italian. And so I had a translator helping me and working with me. That was another challenge. And I had birds, and I think I put every challenge possible.
I was going to say, what's really funny about all this is you're a producer.
Yeah.
You knew what you were getting yourself into.
You know what? I I did and I didn't. I feel like I did jump in head first for sure. My DP said to me, Bartosz Nozak was also like another amazing partner on this. He had worked as Janusz Kaminski's camera operator for years, but he had been a DP on it. He's a DP and a DP on his own for many years now too. And he's worked with a lot of first-time filmmakers. And he said, you know, as we were going through all these pieces, he's like, we would be never have gotten through this. Another filmmaker, first-time filmmaker, would probably be a puddle at this point, because the amount of stuff that we have gotten piled on top of us is just so immense. And he said his feeling, and I think he was right after in hindsight, the only way we were able to get through it is I had the foresight to understand to pivot. I knew the schedule was 25 days. I knew I wanted to shoot something a certain way. I had it blocked. I had it storyboard. I had it figured out the way I wanted to do it. When we got there and it wasn't working, I didn't spend, I tried, I kept trying, but I didn't end up spending 6 hours trying to make that work. What I would do is regroup in the moment and pivot and be like, okay, this is the beat, this is the point, this is what needs to happen. What do I need to do to make that happen now? And so I would just kind of repivot. And his explanation, working with a lot of first-time filmmakers, was that he's like, the first-time filmmaker will sit there and spend 6-7 hours trying to do that specific setup that they had dreamed of, not realizing that they've screwed up the rest of the shooting day and you've missed out on a whole bunch of other key elements and scenes that need to work. So, I mean, sometimes you need to do that, and other times you just need to be able to pivot. So I think my experience as a producer and having worked on so many sets was that I understood when I needed to say, okay, this isn't going to work this way, and I've got to regroup.
It's going to be my last question for you. I'm so curious. So this is your first feature, and behind the camera. What was like the big lesson or two that you learned that you're going to take with you for if you direct again?
I certainly hope to direct again. I've got a couple other ideas.
Let me rephrase. When you direct again.
When I direct again. Thank you. Yes. I'll be honest with you. One of the big things is that I've learned I've come out of directing. As a producer, I'm very passionate and very intimate with the stories that I'm telling and wanting to be involved with as a producer. But also, I'm okay with my mind as a producer goes to, okay, this actor passed. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This actor passed, on to the next one. Or, this thing isn't working, or this designer I can't get, and this isn't happening. On to the next one. I found as a director a lot more vulnerability than I had as a producer, and there's a lot more. It's what life is. But if an actor passes, it really just hurts on a more personal level than it does as a producer. An actor passing to a producer is what I felt. And so, I need to take a little bit more of the producing head mindset to the directing with some of these things. And the other element is just me as a person and how I've always worked is I'm not a yeller, I'm not a screamer as a producer. I tend to, when there was a problem as a producer and the chaos is happening right here, I tended to take a step away from it and take a step back and watch the chaos so that I could have a second to process it and figure out, okay, what's the way out of this chaos that everyone's yelling and screaming about, and then step back into it and come up with the path forward. And as a director, it's nonstop. So I would probably put some of that same producing energy into directing and try to handle things. It's not, you can't be, I feel like, to tell these stories, for me anyway, personally, I just can't be mechanical about it, and I can't be, it's not an impersonal thing. For me, filmmaking is a very vulnerable activity, and I think that's how you make films that are hopefully touching and emotional. A lot of this film we shot almost at the beginning. It wasn't in sequence, but a lot of the stuff early in the film is what we shot like the first few days of the shoot. And then toward the end is really all the end of the movie. And so I feel like that was one of the Italianisms as well that happened. March 20th was the first day we were supposed to start shooting. And then somewhere like mid-February, they came to me and like, oh, Robert, I'm so sorry. Listen, we have to start shooting March 1st in order to qualify for the tax credit. And I was like, wait, what? And they're like, just don't worry, just one day. I'm like, okay, we'll do like some second unit thing on March 1st. 2 days later, they came back and said, oh, sorry, it's got to be consecutive. So all of a sudden, my prep was ripped out, and I had 3 weeks all of a sudden of prep just ripped away, and I had to like get up and get going. And my lead actress wasn't even available on that first day too, so I was like shooting and there's not a lot without her, every possible thing that she wasn't in these early days, and try to get her earlier. So it's just you're just in a constant battle, I feel like, filmmaking, and I can make a ton of excuses for a ton of different things, but at the end of the day, none of it matters. And so there's no bar that comes up here saying, oh, he had 25 days to make this. Oh, they lost the crane and they couldn't do this and they couldn't do that. Whatever it is, you just have to figure it out in that moment. I realize, as a producer and as a director, and make it still something that works and hopefully the audience can respond to and relate to and make entertainment.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people realize about the behind the scenes. Everyone thinks it's very organized and together, and it's like, oh no, you had that actor for 5 days,
right?
And you have to shoot everything in those 5 days, or the two actors that are in all these scenes, they were never in the room together.
Yeah,
and you got to make it work.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of those different elements, and I think one of the things is you just have to like have a thick skin and not be afraid and just keep going forward and making it happen. It's not for the faint of heart, for sure.
On that note, I really want to say congrats on your feature debut. I also just congrats on having a career in this business as a producer, because it's effing hard.
It is very hard.
You know what I mean? And so, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Salerno, and please spread the word on Hereafter on social media if you enjoyed the film, and if have a fantastic night. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.